I don't think. Oh, we're live. We are now, Sal.
Hey, what's going on?
We're live.
We're live.
Hi, welcome to Betwixt the Shadows. It is Christmas Eve, so it's 23rd. Thank you to everyone who is tuning in with us tonight. We know that it's just a busy time, so we really appreciate everyone who's here watching live, and to everyone catching it on the replay, we love you too. How's it going, Sal? How's the shop been? I haven't been there in a while.
The shop's been actually really super busy. A lot of people are buying up the kits that we have created. They've actually started creating a buzz. We started making these Planetary Magic kits where when you get the box that go to a certain planet, like say the sun, then it's set up to do any magical working that is solar based. And we've got one for every planet. We've also got one for reversing. We've got one for Hecate specifically. We've got a couple bigger ones that are, I've got an actual witch's altar to go kit that I've made. And it's
so good.
It has every component in it that you need, even sage, which I don't really care for, but it's got sage and Palo Santo. It's got temple blend incense, temple blend oil, a black and a white candle for the god, the goddess, or the male and female energies, the pentacle, the cup, the chalice, the boline, charcoal, incense burner. It's got everything, and it's set up, and it's got the pentacle that you put right on top of it, and then you just go, and it's got an altar cloth. It's ready to go. So we got that, and then we've got a 7 planetary box that's got all the planets with all the oils and all the incenses and herbs.
We need to do an episode on planetary magic and sort of do a breakdown on like the different ways that you can work with that in the new year.
For sure.
Today we're kind of playing it loose. We have a lot of questions from you guys that you that were sent in advance, but we want to encourage people to just start sending in your questions right away as we go. I also have my tarot cards here. We're not going to turn it into a tarot reading session, but if people have little questions that they want to throw out, you can throw out your tarot questions as well. As per usual, I have a little bit of astrology coming up. So the big event that we have coming up is going to be the full moon on December 29th, and that's going to be in Cancer. And anytime there's a Cancer full moon or new moon, which would only be, once a year.
There's a ticking that's really loud.
All right, it's that. Hold on one second. Let me get it.
Hey guys, I'm just gonna be a little song and dance. This is how I do the wave. It was an 80s hip move that breakdancers used to do, but I used to do it. You do it with your body. But you can also do it like this, and then you can lock.
Great.
Sorry. Okay, we're back.
Thanks for filling the space. Okay, it was my guinea pigs. I forgot to take out their second water bottle. That's the one that always clicks. Anyway.
No water for you.
Well, no, they have 2 water bottles, so they're still okay. Okay, so the full moon is in Cancer. Anytime we're looking at a Cancer moon, that's when people feel super emo. Cancer is a water sign, so it is going to pertain to our emotions. Because the sun is in Capricorn right now, and it's a little bit guarded, we are going to see, people are going to be wanting to close off a little bit. People are going to be wanting to just sort of like be in their own space, have a little bit of a reprieve from the world, and kind of like this is just when it's time to nurture yourself. Cancer is the sign that's all about nurturing. It's about the home as well. Cancer rules the home. So definitely try to stay in on December 29th and do some sort of self-care activity, because it's sort of about processing your own emotions in like a hermit state versus like going out and dealing with other people or talking to other people. This is a really good time to like release your disappointments for the year. This is a really good time to like release your emotional upsets from the year, which everyone had them. Like you're not going to be unscathed completely in 2020. No one is.
So what about like people that are Cancers? Like, do I have to deal with more from Popey now, my wife, because she's a Cancer?
Yeah, totally. Cancers are going to be more emotional whenever the moon is in their sign. And a full moon, it could go one of two ways, because she's a Cancer and Cancers are very nurturing. She may like very much want to be nurturing towards you, but also like her emotions could go wherever, because Cancer is the moodiest sign. It just is. And I'm not saying that about Popey, but I'm just saying that about Cancer. It's a good time to like eat good food, sit on the couch, just sort of like, it's like
a video games.
Yeah, it's a Netflix and chill, just like the comforts of home sort of a time. One aspect that we do have in addition to the full moon is we have a trine, which is a supportive aspect between Uranus and the sun. So people may decide that they want to like change up their wardrobe. Look out for emotional spending on this full moon. So if you're an emotional spender, like don't go crazy shopping online, because it could kind of, are you an emotional, is this your way of telling us you're an emotional?
My fourth pair of boots in 2 weeks.
Is that, wow.
Fourth pair. Crazy. Fourth pair of boots in 2 weeks. I haven't bought any gifts at all, but I bought myself four pairs of boots.
Well, I guess
we don't practice.
Yeah.
We don't practice the holidays.
So you guys don't do anything on Christmas at all?
Mm-mm.
Teach their own.
Yeah, I just can't do it. I'm trying to do it. And, go ahead. Sorry.
No, that's okay. There's one more aspect that I wanted to sort of touch on, and that is Venus and the South Node are conjunct. So they're right on top of each other, and they're forming a square, which is a harsh aspect to Neptune. So this could be a time where like either lovers from the past try to like pop back up, and they may try to like create the illusion that they're different, or create the illusion that they are, have learned some sort of a lesson, but it's not necessarily to be trusted. Whenever we see a square to Neptune, there's some sort of deception. So there could be deception around love. You might, if you're meeting someone and they seem really dreamy, I wouldn't trust it. I'm not saying don't go with it. I'm not saying astrology is like the be all end all of scenarios, but cosmically speaking, there is energy for deception around love. So just be careful when it comes to that. And I mean, I think that's pretty much it with the full moon. Because it is a full moon in Cancer, it's a really good time to do like a house cleansing, especially because this year was such a shit show and we all had to spend so much time at home. This is a good time to push out the energy from the trauma of 2020 and invite in some sort of prosperity or love or happiness in 2021. So those are all ways that I recommend working with this full moon from an astrological perspective.
Cool. Very good. Tonight, I thought, I'm thinking about it a lot, and it came up a couple times with the Shadow Crew. Shadow Crew is the people that run the show. For those of you that don't know, they are out there, even though they're not seen. They're very much an important part of Betwixt the Shadows. But it was coming up, and I think it would be a really cool topic, and it's rantable. I really want to talk about all these different pockets that people have for what they're into. Right. And I have been, most of my life, I've been a person that extremely is against being in any situation where I'm trying to be like somebody else in the group. So, I've always worked on my own. I've always been my own person. I always went out of my way to wear things that were odd, or not to get the attention, but because I didn't want to be like everybody else. And I didn't want to get into, I want to be like them. I want to be in this group. I want to be in that group. I didn't join the Golden Dawn because I wanted to be in a group. I joined the Golden Dawn because I wanted to learn the practicum. It's very important. But I find that everybody tends to want to put things into categories, and there's so many categories out there, and I really don't like it. And for me, it really annoys me, whether it be like just a couple off the top of my head: a light worker, a Wiccan. A Wiccan is a religion, so that's specific. That's a little bit different. But right. A witch,
Right. I don't like it when people call me Wiccan though, or assume that I'm like
yeah,
so
well, it's like assuming you're Jewish or
yeah.
or Muslim. You know, you don't know. You can't assume what people are that way. That is another thing that bothers me about these labels that people put us on. If we're, you know, people want to constantly put people in groups. It's like, you know, even in this country, oh, I'm a Democrat, oh, I'm a Republican, no, I'm an independent. And I'm an independent because I want to do either. Independent's still a group. You know, no, I'm into punk rock. No, I'm into metal. No, I don't, I really hate that. And I really want people to realize that we just are. We don't need to be in these pockets, you know, an ascended master versus a star seed versus a new age person, or the term new ager. That's just bullshit to me. I don't buy into any of that. A witch is all those things, and they are witches as well. A lot of people stay away from the word witch though, because it has negative connotations added to it. But then at the same time, there's plenty of people out there that will glom onto the word witch because it has a connotation that's dark and mysterious. You know what I mean?
And because it's become so trendy lately that I think people are, you know, jumping on it for that reason as well. But I mean, I definitely, first of all, when it comes to like people saying like I'm an ascended master, or like I'm a master number this, or blah blah blah, like I don't know, like it gets a little like spiritual pretentious to me. And I don't like that. I don't like that shit when people are like, "Oh, I'm a starseed," which means that like I'm a person who was from another planet, another galaxy, and I came to Earth to save you. And I just feel like it gets a little disconnected. I feel like
David Bowie, but I mean, you know, it's just that's a whole situation.
But
I'm not knocking people, but
no.
I mean, we're just people that are into spaces, and we're all these things. You know what I mean? It's don't get into something because it's taboo or because it's got a name on it. Oh, I want to be this because I'm that. Oh, I'm a hereditary witch. I you know, a lot of people will be really pissed at me out there, but sometimes I invoke being pissed off because I'll always say things because I want to get reaction. Okay. But I don't believe in hereditary witchcraft. That doesn't mean I don't believe that you couldn't have learned spellcraft from your grandmother and she couldn't have learned it from her mother, which technically could be hereditary witchcraft. But when you say, a lot of times when people use the term hereditary witchcraft, it's usually prefaced because it's trying to make them look like they've got some arcane system of knowledge that people don't get and that people need to aspire to have. And witchcraft is for all. Witchcraft is just a way of looking at a system of work.
And you can't define it. That's why I am always just like, I'm a witch, because it's like, I don't have rules. I have a moral compass, and I have an internal sort of dialogue with myself about, you know, what is and isn't acceptable. But like, I became a witch because I wanted to get away from dogma, and I wanted to get away from people like sort of like putting my spirituality in a box. So I feel like anytime that sort of like comes into my sphere is very triggering for me. And I'm like, I'm not into that.
And that's another thing is like, and I'm not trying to play off of you right now when I say this, but like for me, because I say I'm a witch and I'm practicing witchcraft, that might have, I'm not saying it does, but it very well could have nothing to do with being spiritual. I mean, oh, completely. It's math.
You can be a witch and not have it be a spiritual thing. I mean, I don't know. That doesn't make sense to me, really.
Why does it have to be spiritual?
Because you have to tap into higher concepts outside of yourself, and that's inherently spiritual.
I don't see it that way. When I'm doing spell work, I'm not trying to get a spiritual agenda going with the planet of Jupiter. It's a math equation that I'm doing to cause change, to bend it to my will.
Right.
That's witchcraft. I'm using this as a means of coercion, manipulation, altering, changing, and pulling things into my favor to make something happen. I don't need to bring in a deity structure to do that every time. I don't need to tap into my higher power. It's a configuration of objects and my own psyche.
I I just think of I mean, I think maybe it's just the astrologer in me coming out, but I think of planetary archetypes as super spiritual because I'm always following, what they're doing and how they're lined up and how it's affecting the energy. So maybe that's where like the disconnect happens for me because I'm very much thinking of them as archetypes and energies, and they are, based off of God and goddess folklore. So
well, that's that's very true to some degrees, but from a planetary magical perspective, I'm not looking at Helios when I see the sun. I'm not looking at Saturn because of the planet Saturn, or Venus. I'm not thinking of the goddess of love. I'm seeing that energy through structure of Ptolemaic structures and colorization through Kabbalah. I know that I need to attract this, to pull on this energy to cause and bend things to how I want them to go. Yeah. I don't need that. I don't need it to be a deity that I'm going to. I mean, if I want to go to Aries and Mars, sure, that would be a great time to use him, but I don't need Aries to create a spell for really good fucking.
Right.
You know what I mean? I don't need that. I just, that's an energy I'm tapping into.
Mars is in Aries right now, placed in Aries. So it's just kind of funny that you said that. You just like, no.
Yeah. So it's just, but that's just, and it goes that with other things as well. I don't try to come off as a groovy ghoulie. That's a dated term.
But I want you to elaborate on what a groovy ghoulie is.
Well, a groovy ghoulie is just a 70s cartoon term. But when I say that, I'm not trying to come off all goth and dark and I'm macabre and I'm darker than thou and I'm doing my dance and stuff. That's not why I'm not playing on my maleficness or my morbidity by saying that. You know what I mean? I'm a very spiritual person. Mm-hmm. And there's a time and place for spirituality. And sometimes when I'm doing spellcraft for my clients, I'm very much calling in Hecate. Then it does become spiritual. Right. But there's sometimes when I'm not. If I'm in here busting out a gree bag, I'm not calling in my goddess and knocking on her door one more time to bless the working that I'm doing. I mean, I don't need to do that to her. I just need to configure my math.
I mean, one of the things that I really love about you is that you are no bullshit and you are just about the work. And it's one of the reasons why I feel like we connected very quickly. Because they're just like, I don't want to shit on other people, but at the same time, like we're kind of just like allowing ourselves to rant and go with it today. But I just feel like there are like groups of women who are just like, I don't know, like they're just like too floaty. And it's like,
why does it have to be genderized?
Because that's just what I've encountered. I'm not genderizing it, like, it can be men.
I meant that respectfully. I'm just asking.
No. I just because that's what I've encountered, like other shops where, and because, I mean, if we're going to be, I don't think you need to be a man or a woman to do this, but it seems like women are more sort of like out there as witches, as psychics. Like it seems to be a female dominated field, which I think is maybe one of the reasons why you like it so much, because I know that you prefer feminine energy to masculine energy. Mm-hmm. But I just I don't know, women who sort of just like sit around in their goddess circles, and I'm not knocking goddess circles either, but it's just sort of that like, oh, wear this and like let's in kumbaya, and I'm not.
That's cool with that, but some people need that, but I definitely don't think that is when people use words around me, they got to be careful with them, because I'm a very literal person. When you're talking about witchcraft, when I was with my client 4 nights ago in that room, and I was busting a human figure candle and making its limbs crack, because I was invoking a specific energy on that candle, not to go into details, but, and I'm saying certain words in what someone would construe as tongues. That to me, witchcraft. You know what I mean? That's like what I'm doing. When I'm in there and I'm on the fucking ground and I'm screaming my mind out and I'm spitting on the altar and bashing in the head of I'm getting into not anything alive, but wax. But you know, when you invoke energy, when you're getting guttural and you're getting in the groove, that's witchcraft. It's this thing that comes out. That doesn't mean that being your inner goddess isn't witch-like. It is, but it's also, let's not confuse that either, because every woman is a goddess and you all deserve to be goddesses. You all are the incarnate of the goddess, but you don't need to be a witch to do that. You can just be the female that you're born to be. And that's powerful enough.
I'm thinking of like the Gwyneth Paltrow, like goop type of like groups. Oh my God, are you not?
Isn't that Gwyneth Paltrow? Isn't she play on? Isn't she the chick that's in Iron Man? Pepper Potts?
I don't think so, but I don't know.
I think that's Stark's wife.
I'm happy you don't know what goop is. Like, I just feel like that's
I have no idea what you
goop? Yeah, it's like her website, but it's just like, it's supposed to be like, it's like that more new age vibe of like mindfulness, but she just like has all these like crazy like new agey things that she suggests women should do, like steaming their vaginas with like all this like all this crazy stuff. Like it's just like there's this subculture that I think you haven't been exposed to that I have, and I'm just like, that's enough. Like I don't need this.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, so you know, I think that finding your inner deity, your eminent archetypal feminine is great. But you know, going back to my original point, like all these things, you know, many, many years ago, witches were revered people. You feared them, but you revered them, you know. But now, you know, to a lot of people, especially prior to the common trend of witchcraft, a lot of people were like, oh, I'm not a witch, I'm a healer. But that is a witch.
Yeah, it is. We have a question from Taylor. Yeah. Do you feel like it's gatekeeping that's upsetting, or more like ego versus energy work? I think.
What does gatekeeping mean? I don't get what that means. I'm not up on new names of things.
With gatekeeping, I think it's sort of like when it comes almost like sorority like, and when it becomes like, I don't know, like I've just heard like gossipy, witchy.
This is what gatekeeping means? I don't know what that means.
That's how I'm interpreting. Gatekeeping is sort of like
you can't come in, you're not special enough.
Like this is like the gatekeeper is basically like the person who stands in front of a situation or the information. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So basically they're like, you can't come in because you're not part of us, that kind of thing.
Yeah. I
mean, what is the question again? No, let me read it.
I think they're just asking like, you know, do you feel like it's gatekeeping that's upsetting, or more like ego versus energy work? I mean, I think it's both. I think that there are people who say like, oh, I'm an ascended master, like we were talking about at the beginning. And it's just sort of like, they think that they're above other people, and they think that they've done, work that other people haven't done, when the truth is we don't know what other people have been through or what their personal evolution or experiences have been like up until the point that we're meeting them. And so it's just like when you come across someone who's like, oh, I've done this, I'm an ascended master and I'm blah, blah, blah. It just sort of like implies that they've done more internal work. And that's where I think it's just like such a turn off, you know? Like,
see, you know, the thing about internal work, thing about one of the things about internal work or claiming internal work is there's no affidavit or contract or permit that says you did complete it. But if somebody claims something like that, you have to just go with that they're telling you the truth.
Exactly. Well, that's when I look at like readers who offer past life readings. Mm-hmm. I'm not into that. Like, I think if you're going to get a past life reading, it needs to be with a licensed hypnotherapist who does regression work. Because the thing is, like, if you're giving a past life reading, like literally, like you can make up anything. You know what I mean? And so like, that's where I think like, if you want a past life reading, you need to get regressed, and you need to have someone like guide you through your own experiences, because otherwise it could just be like malarkey. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, no, it totally makes sense. Well, that's where you got to be careful of things like that, you know, of any of the terminology that people throw out there. I'm trying to answer Taylor's question. I don't think I'm still not completely wrapped around what he's trying to ask.
Or she.
Is this, or she, sorry, or there, I will say there, sorry. He or she is trying to ask. So it's saying that, do you feel that this, is that what's upsetting, or is it more the ego versus the energy work that we're upset about? I'm upset about when discussing this topic. The thing that bothers me about it is people need to feel like they need to be labelized. And that's what I don't like.
Yeah.
I don't like labels. I don't like it. I didn't like labels when I was a kid. I didn't like being told I had to wear a flannel shirt when I was a kid. If I wanted to wear a flannel shirt, it might have looked great if I tied it at the bottom. You know, I don't know. I could have worn it with Daisy Dukes and hot shorts or whatever. I don't know. You know, I just like what I like, and people should like what they like. And if they feel that they are these things, or they have this label that they want to be put on, that's great. But you don't have to look to be put in these pots.
I mean, I feel like people should be able to apply their own labels, because like I've always been happy to call myself a feminist or a riot girl or a witch or a psychic. But like when I was in high school and someone like mislabeled me as goth when I was going punk, like that shit would piss me off. So I think that like labels need to just be applied from the self. Like we can't be putting them on other people.
Yeah, you know, and it really sucks because, you know, I think that's really what I'm talking about this hour, is so much not just about witchcraft. It's just that people want to categorize everything. They're not happy until it's in a group. So they've got, oh, this is where that person is. Like, it's like seeing me and thinking I'm a drag queen. I am the furthest thing from a drag queen I could ever be. I just happen to like dresses because I have great legs. Yeah. And I wear heels really well. I'm doing that because that's how I feel. And is it sexy to wear really awesome leggings? Yeah.
Yeah. But, you know what? I feel you, because everyone thought I was a lesbian in high school and I wasn't.
Yeah. And it's not about that. It's just about what you feel like being. And people need to just see that. And just, we're better off that way.
People are doing, to be honest. Like, you don't need to box other people into. But we have like 8 questions.
Oh shit! Well, hammer them off. Let me hear them.
We need to move it forward. So here's our first question that was sent in advance. Hi to you both. I'm not sure what the theme is of today's show, but I had a general question about an altar that I would like to set up. I have some student loan debt that I'd like to pay off completely next year. What oils, crystals, and offerings could I put at this altar to help me accomplish this goal? Thank you.
Okay. That wouldn't be a specific, you wouldn't want to make, from my perspective, I wouldn't say that's a specific altar. You could do work on your altar in a specific way to make that happen. And what I would be doing is, if you're dealing with debt of that level, I would be going into Jupiter to move into prosperity and expansion, and to grow, start bringing that back in. I would also start to tap in a little bit of mercurial work, because you want to create communication and open up things, start, you know, getting what you went to school for and getting your place in your future, so you can start paying these debts off. I would say definitely work with Jupiter, work with Mercury. What does that mean for you guys, as far as people that don't know their planetary magic? Start working with blue candles, start working with orange candles, start working with some basic Jupiterian herbs. A great easy one to use for that would be dandelions. Dandelion is a great Jupiter herb. For any type of mercurial work, lavender is great. So use herbs that are lavender oils on orange candles. Start working with carnelians. Any stone that visually is orange is okay. In witchcraft, when we work with stones, we're not looking for them to be, I need kyanite because it resonates. It's not that way with us. We use it because at least in the way that I teach people, you're using a color of a stone, regardless of what the name of it is, so it's indicative and associative of the planet that you're trying to work with. So in this case, an orangey jasper, an orangey agate, an orange carnelian, any of these things, I'd be placing those around, and I'd work with the number 5. And in Jupiter, I would work with the number 4, because Mercury is very much the number that you're working for in Mercury is the number 5. In Jupiter, to work with numbers, you work with the number 4. So get 4 stones that are blue, get 5 stones that are orange, place them around the candles, dress them with the oil, roll it through those herbs, and start lighting those on Wednesdays and Thursdays. Blue for Thursday, orange for Wednesday. That's what I would say.
I have a totally different perspective on this. So I will sort of turn one of my altars into a money altar when I need to bring in money and I have a specific agenda. Sometimes what I'll do is I will put, I'll put a $20 bill, $100 bill, or even a check on the little altar that I have by my door, and a bell. And every time I sort of walk out of that room or I walk by, I'll ring the bell over the money, just to like try to bring that energy in. I would recommend aventurine as a stone, even citrine as well. I recommend sprinkling gold pyrite over the front of your door because that invites money into the home. If you know that you have a little bit of a fear around, reaching career goals and having your profession expand in the way that you want to, I rub bergamot oil on the heart chakra. So that opens your heart up and it alleviates fears around like bringing money in, because people are afraid of money. People are afraid of success. Even if they want it, there's still a fear tied to it. So it depends on, to me, like what energy you're working with in general, like from an internal point of view. And if you're having, if you're wanting to call in more money so that you can pay off these loans, I like green candles, and green is affiliated with Venus, but Venus in astrology rules love and money. So when I'm looking at people's finances in astrology, I'm always looking at Taurus, which is Venus ruled, because that rules the second house, which rules finances and money. So I think that we have a little bit of different systems.
Well, when you're working with Venus in a monetary perspective, because Venus is not about love, it's about attraction of what you need. And when you're using Venus for money, it's usually a denominational amount. It's a set amount of money that you need in a specific amount of time. So if you need $750 to make this car payment because you're missing it in your funds this month, Venus is where you're going. But if you're trying to keep constant flow of money coming in, you want it to advance in your career or bring in that, the prosperity of it all. That's where Jupiter is. So it's moving constant.
What if her goal is I have X amount in debt that I want to pay off by the end of this year? Couldn't she
That would be Venus.
Yeah.
You could go, that would be specific. So now, like I said, if you say now, she says denomination, that's what I would be doing. Mm-hmm. Denominational amounts. But also the sun is also that. Money drawing is also a power of the sun, which is where you're getting your gold energy from. But the Venusian energy actually, and this is actually really funny because now we're getting into a planetary magic conversation. Venus is not pink. It doesn't. The only reason pink exists in the color Venus is because people associate it in pop culture and modern culture with Valentine's Day and with love. Mm-hmm. Okay. But Venus, because the planet's named Venus, that has nothing to do with the deity Venus, unless you want it to. Venus is actually Netzach on the tree of life in Kabbalah. And the color that you're using to attract that is green.
Yeah.
Not pink.
Right.
Pink came in many years later.
Yeah, that's where the adventure green comes from. In terms of oils, I like carnation oil as well, just to bring in prosperity. If you want to carry tiger's eye, that's affiliated with luck as well. So if you're trying to invite in abundance. That's a good one as well. But
This is turning out to be a really great show. So let's keep this going. I'm like,
yeah,
we have the next question. What is it?
So this person, they say, I think they have two questions here. The first is, Sal mentioned in an earlier episode that when you do spell work, you can't have fear, doubt, or guilt. I love ritual, but sometimes feel bad about commanding or petitioning for what I want in a more material sense in spell form. Do you have any advice for thinking about this?
I would first off start doing some meditations on and start thinking that you deserve whatever it is you're trying to manifest. No fear, no guilt, no self-doubt is very important, because if you're putting that out there, it's making it not 100%. So if you're not giving 100% to your spell work by knowing that you want this, you deserve this, there should be no guilt or repression in spellcraft, in witchcraft. We're not here to feel the guilt that is put on us by structured systems. We're here to create that, so a spell, so we demand that we get what we want. We can do that because we acknowledge who we are and how we are. And that doesn't mean we're better than others. That means that we just acknowledge the fact that we are great and that we each deserve this thing. And every other person in the world can equally do that. And you're no better than they are. But the only difference is you acknowledge it. And until you acknowledge it, you're gonna have holes in what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
Don't feel bad about it.
Yeah. No, it's like a self-worth thing. Like you said, like you deserve it. So decide that you deserve it.
Exactly.
And then,
what's the second half?
Sal mentioned that he doesn't do spell work for his own material needs anymore, but mostly does working for clients. Why is that?
Specifically, because at this juncture, I am absolutely blissful and happy for what I've got. I think this is where I can go spiritual with this. My goddess brings me more than I could ask for. Also, being a magician and a witch for so long, I feel that I don't so much need to put focus on what it is I need, like when I was younger, because now it's like the thought process is in my mind, like knowing I want my new MacBook Pro. By the end of January, I'll have a new MacBook Pro. That's just how it's going to be. And I've just made it so. That's why I'm not actually doing functioning movement on the altar work. And I'm not trying to sound holier than thou or sound better than, because I'm not in any way. I've just learned to utilize magic and let it move through my pores to bring in the things that I want at this juncture.
You're an ascended master.
No way. That's such a weird word. Bader, maybe.
What?
You said I'm an ascended master. I said Bader. Sorry.
All right, next question.
That's just the truth. I just don't do it much anymore. I haven't really looked for it,
Yeah. Okay. This person asks, how can you tell if you have fake stones? I have hematite stones and I can't tell if they're working or not. Thank you. Sending love and light, Sarah. How much did you pay for them? That's a big one. Like,
Really? Ours are $1.50 for hematite. How much cheaper can it get?
Right. No, but I mean, like, in terms of telling if your stones are fake or not. Because I think that someone came into the shop like a couple of weeks ago and they asked us if their moldavite was real, which is a pretty expensive stone, and it wasn't. They paid like $5. So I think that's one way that you could tell.
And certain things like that, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I think that in terms of telling if they're real or not, like, I can't tell if they're working or not. I mean, you may just not connect with that stone. You may not be bonding with that object. It depends on how you're using it too, and like what your intention is when it comes to working with this stone. for why it may or may not be working.
When you're, I've got something to share on that when you're ready.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. You're not going to like my answer, but then again, I'm not here to necessarily make everything, but like everything I say. Okay. If I went out downstairs and I dumped all those rocks out that I've got in the jars in the store and I filled them with buttons that match the color, that's all I'd need.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's the color that I'm trying to work with.
Right.
Okay. That being said, the natural quality of stones are beautiful. But if you've ever noticed, all the stones that you see, the semi-precious stones that are out there, they'll always tell you it has a protective quality. Okay, that's because it's of the earth. It's a quality of stone. The stone has that intrinsic quality about it, and it will also protect you if you throw it at somebody. So if it was big enough. But that also being said, that was a bad joke. There are some stones downstairs that we sell in the store that aren't real, and that doesn't mean that they're not working. And when people buy them and they bring them up to my register, I tell them they're not real. Opalite is not a real stone. Opalite is colored glass. Blue obsidian is not a real stone. It's colored glass. Mm-hmm. Some citrine that you are buying, most citrines that people are buying today are baked amethyst. Amethyst, when it's baked at a very high temperature, concentrated, it will change the color from purple to yellow. There are true citrines, but citrines that are true usually are lemon citrine, and they're so faint. I not to sound gross when I say this to you, or you guys out there in YouTube land, but a lot of the citrines that are natural almost look like the color of pea. It's like light yellow.
I think it depends, because this is citrine and this is legit
but
stuff.
Citrines are also other colors. They're not all yellow.
Like this is super dark as well. Like this is almost brown. So, I mean, I think it also depends on like where you're getting it from, going to a reputable store or going to a reputable source. But I also think that in general, it's easier to tell the authenticity of a crystal if it's raw versus tumbled.
Yeah. I mean, tumbled, you're going to get a lot of, you're going to get 500 different answers, for tumbled stones. But you got to remember that a lot of stones, even precious stones, they're, that's why you have to look at, when you get a precious stone, look at their other names. Ruby, sapphire. Okay. What's the difference? Both of those stones are called corundum. And a corundum is exactly what a ruby and a sapphire is, but the ruby is a little more pricey because the ruby is further down in the earth, causing from the core of the earth, the heat is heavier down there, so it makes a red stone. Where as it travels further up, it becomes the blue is the sapphire.
Yeah,
but they're both corundum. So
sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Oh well, and I was even gonna say too, like don't knock man-made stones.
No,
because I think that in some cases they're almost better because they're more ethically sourced, because if we're looking at who's mining crystals, a lot of the time they're underpaid, they're working
not paid at all,
that it's destructive to the earth. So, and I work with crystals, but I'm not blind about the reality of it. So I actually kind of like man-made crystals because it takes away a little bit of that guilt.
Yeah, and then it also, this is like where you start getting your aura quartz, titanium aura quartz. These druzies, these are all chemically treated stones to give that appearance of color change. So when you see that beautiful aura quartz, that's that aqua blue, that's just a chemical dipped onto the outside of a quartz.
And a lot of amethyst is dyed as well.
A lot of it's dyed.
A lot of stones are dyed. So, I mean,
when you look at amethyst and chevron amethyst, what makes an amethyst chevron? Quartz. It's just a higher level of quartz in the stone. No, they're semi-precious for a reason.
Okay, so Prior to January 1st, 2020, did any psychic, medium, or tarot reader make any predictions that 2020 was going to be so fucked up? Did anyone mention a global pandemic? I haven't heard anyone bring it up. Okay, so I thought 2020 was going to be fucked up as an astrologer, and I will explain why now. On January 12th of 2020, we saw Pluto, which is the planet of destruction, align with Saturn, which is the planet of structure. So basically that conjunction, it doesn't happen very often. It's a very strong conjunction, but they lined up in Capricorn, which is very much rules the systems that we use as a society and sort of like what we're used to and how we function as a society. And so basically Pluto was coming in to bulldoze what we're used to in our structure. So yeah, I think a lot of astrologers knew that 2020 was going to be messed up.
Interesting. I didn't know. I was looking forward to it because because my wife and I were like, oh my God, it's going to be amazing. It's the same address that we have at the store.
I remember you were going to have a 2020 party.
2020 party, and we never did.
Yeah.
More questions.
What rituals do you have planned for the New Year's Eve full moon? Well, the full moon's on the 29th. So none.
I've explained this before. I really focus on the dark moon for me, for my work. What you remember when you think about ritual, what does that mean? It's a really good word to really look at. Ritual means repetition. It's something that's done regularly. It is. Ritual is repetitiously done over and over. That's ritual.
I think that ritual can also be used to reference going into, because I think I want to look at the definition really quick, just because.
Well, ritual is something that you do. You do it. It's like going to mass in church every week. That's a ritual because it's something that keeps going. You keep redoing. It's practice.
Right. So the actual definition, a religious or solemn ceremony consisting of a series of actions performed according to a prescribed order. So I think that there are rituals and then there are like daily rituals. So I think in this instance, they're looking at it from like spell work and like how you're marking the full moon and how like what you're.
Yeah, I don't do spell work on the full moon usually.
I think that honestly, because full moon energy is releasing and it's in Cancer, like I'll probably do a house cleansing. I'll probably just try to purge my space of just the energy from 2020 to invite in a better new year.
When I'm working, I tend to, especially at this juncture of my life, I tend to not do my rituals on the lunar movement, because I believe that magically lunar work is very limiting, and it puts you in a position to have to wait for a specific area of time to get a working done. And any working that you do in any lunar phase, I can do with any of the 7 planets, moon being one of those planets. So I don't really work lunar rituals, but if you're asking, am I doing a full moon ritual on that night? If it wasn't COVID, I would probably be with my coven doing one. But I also know that, my time for ritual every month is the dark moon. So that's what I'm looking forward to. When I see the new moon or the full moon coming in, it just makes me remember how much time I've got before my ritual is time to do. That's how I see it.
All right. So this question, I've been feeling really run down lately. Are there any spells or tips you'd recommend for elevating energy levels?
Go for it.
I recommend working with lemon. Actually, so when I'm trying to raise my energy levels, I'll work with yellow candles or gold candles usually. But I have an essential oil blend that I put in my diffusers. It's 1 part lemon, 1 part eucalyptus, and 1 part spearmint. And for me, that's a really invigorating scent. But I try to just I try to go solar when I need to raise my energy levels. If not, I'll work with Mars, but that's usually if it's like, I know I need to get shit done. If I'm just feeling bogged down, I try to go solar, and I try to work with
Either that or you're going to wear Scott out, one or the other, if you're doing it in Mars.
He can keep up.
I definitely agree with you on the solar energy. I would totally go to sun to bring in energy, because you remember also that is Raphael. Your intellect, your the Eastern Archangel right there is really important to come in. This is where the sun comes up every day. So you can pull energy from that point for sure, and it's limitless.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a really great question, for sure.
We have a question. How does 2021 look? So I think that because of the Saturn-Jupiter conjunction in Aquarius that we just had, we are going to try to use our innovative minds to, it's basically all about how we move forward. It's all about the transition from 2020 into, normalizing things. But I also think we're going to see problems with fanaticism. I think we're going to see problems with, it's going to feel very like start and stop, in my opinion. I think that, people have a lot of high hopes on this vaccine, but I don't think we're going to have a ton of vaccines available for people to take. And then we're also going to be running into issues with people who don't want to take the vaccines. I think we're going to see Trump fanatics coming through, even though Biden's in office. I think people are going to be really stubborn about moving forward with the future. And so where there's going to be one class of people trying to move things forward, trying to use technology and use our minds and use our evolution to bring us to a place where we can be functional again, there's going to be the other side of people who are stuck in their ways that are resistant to change. So I think that there's still going to be some friction, but I don't think it's going to be as destructive as 2020.
Yeah. I don't think I could add much more on that. I think that summed that up pretty well. It's like even Biden even said it, just because he's president doesn't mean we're going to be out of the murky water yet. Got a lot of work ahead of us politically, sociologically. I think we've got a lot of work ahead of us. I think that you're going to see a lot of, things are not going to go away because one person's out of office and another guy's coming in. I voted for Biden, sure, but that doesn't mean I'm putting all my eggs in that basket. I mean, the guy's got a big job to do. And I don't hate or just have any anger against Republican people at all. I mean, that, politically, that's their agenda is that policy and their policies, and they're fine. Actually, I was interviewed 2 nights ago. Was it last night? Actually, it was last night. I was interviewed last night by a gentleman for his show. There's a podcast called No Cover. It's out of Ventura. And he, in February, is going to be interviewing three-way podcast interview off of Skype. He's going to be interviewing the head of BLM.
Oh, nice.
The head of the Proud Boys. And the head of Antifa on the West Coast chapter. All 3 of them are going to be together in an interview.
That's going to be tense.
That's going to be a really intense interview to see. But we've got to put things down. Just because someone's views aren't like yours doesn't mean they're bad people. We're entitled to have views. In
some cases, it does. If their views are racist, it makes them a bad person.
That's I don't know. Yeah, I guess if they're blatantly racist, for sure.
Yeah, or if they're violent.
Racism is ugly.
Yeah.
For sure. But I'm not here to pass judgment on anyone. That's not my place.
I will pass judgment on racists.
Yeah. I don't know. I just don't. It's not my place. I just know that I do my best, and people around me do their best, and that's what matters.
Yeah.
So what is the next one?
We have another question coming live. Does the size of a crystal or it being tumbled versus natural change its properties at all, or is it all aesthetics? based on what you've been saying, I'm guessing that it doesn't, but just curious. I think if you're drawn to it, that's what matters most. If you feel connected to it, that's what matters. I prefer
it's doing its job. Yeah.
Yeah, some people don't.
Yeah, if it's doing the job, that's what matters. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and what what aligns with you and what makes you feel like it's taking care of business.
There's so many versions of these answers out there. I'm sure there's a lot of people that are gonna watch this. They're gonna be like, I don't like this guy's views. He's too all over the place, or maybe I don't agree with this. That's okay. I don't want you guys to agree with me on everything. I'm just one person trying to invoke thought in your mind to take advantage of what you have around you to make it work in your favor. I'm all about that. And one of the fine things I found out when I was younger in the occult and witchcraft, people were really afraid of the word manipulation. And manipulation doesn't have to be a scary word.
Well, yeah, I think they just associate it with emotional manipulation, which is
narrow, if that's the case. When you are in your living room and you really have to pee super bad and you walk up to the bathroom but the door's closed, you're manipulating it to get to the other side.
Right.
Manipulation is changing something to a point to where it will work to the advantage that you need it to. It doesn't always have to be fucking somebody over. So manipulation is a very important part of magic. We are practicing this to cause change with will. It's very Crowley to say that, and I don't mean to just blatantly take from him, but find your will. Your will is it's important, and when you work with that, you can cause these things to happen. A lot of people look at spellcraft in a lot of different ways. People like, oh, this is just another affirmation. I don't think so. I really, I'm really not a proponent of affirmation work. It's not really my bag of tricks.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. I think it's a good concept, but I don't want that to be confused with spellcraft.
Right. Yeah, totally.
I'm doing work because I'm doing work, and people are like, well, so then that's making it mystical and mysterious, and no. Why does it have to be those things? Why do we have to be hung up on things being mystical? Why does it have to be like gazing into the crystal ball or foretelling the future? Not everybody that's a witch needs to do that stuff.
And everyone that does that stuff needs to be a witch.
That's right. Exactly. I've got some great tarot readers in my shop. 2 of them are present. Some of them aren't witches or occultists or practice magic or have altars. They're just really good at reading tarot. I think it's an art form in itself, but it doesn't all have to be that way. And I used to get kind of offended that witchcraft had to be lumped in with ghosts and spooky and seances, and just that makes my eyes roll. And I had to stop myself from being that way, because I didn't mean to be disrespectful to anybody that did that stuff. But it just seems like that's going to go with that. Butter goes with toast. Psychics go with witchcraft. I don't get it. It doesn't necessarily have to be that way. You put your anchovies on toast.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And it's just like, it doesn't always have to be a mystical art. It's just life. It's just working in life. And I really want people to see that so they can step in and do the work. That's super important.
Yeah, I agree with you. All right, so are you ready for the last question?
Yeah, I'm ready for another question.
All right. Well,
I'm enjoying this night tonight.
The last one, huh?
I'm really enjoying this tonight.
It's a good night. Yeah. Okay, so the last question that we have, I think my house is haunted, but it doesn't really bother me. Is it bad if I don't do anything to make the ghosts go away?
Not a damn thing wrong with that.
I think it's totally fine. It might
Yeah.
even be like an ancestor or someone trying to help you. And if it doesn't bother you and you don't feel scared, then just leave it.
And if you do feel scared, maybe that's making you reach into your psyche to see why you are. Maybe it's giving you an answer that you need to hear.
Yeah.
No, I don't think so. I don't think that at all. I mean, you know what? The house was built on land that was there long before you.
Mm-hmm.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
It's forever. You know, people are like, oh, the house is only 30 years old. Yeah, well, how old is the dirt under it?
Yeah. No, that's so true. That's so true. I
Yeah.
also think that, you know, even in terms of older houses, if you're not the original owner, does that make you a guest then? Like, even though you've taken over the property at a certain
Sure.
point, like, so it's just, if it doesn't bother you, then no, don't do anything. It's totally
Yeah.
fine. Leave
Are you
it.
gonna charge the crow rent because he's roosting in your tree?
Yes.
It's not yours, really.
No, yeah,
Right? It's
exactly.
really not our land. You know, that's the other thing that's just so crazy about that. Not to spew off of that question, but none of this is really ours, regardless of what lease we have or what piece of paper the government says, oh, you own this. Not really. Because long
Yeah.
after you're gone, just like your shit, it's still going to be here.
The only thing that's truly yours is your body.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Until it dissipates. You
Yeah.
know, that was a really good question though. You don't, let things be. This is another reason why I am so about people not using sage so much. Why do you want to purge out things in there? You want it to be a living, breathing thing. A
Yeah.
home, besides the fact that it's four walls and a roof, it is alive. It is breathing. It is feeling. It is experiencing things that have been going on around it. That's why I wish they could talk. And sometimes they do.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not in the way we think they do, but they have a lot to say.
Yeah, I'm like, leave an offering out for it. Like, if
Sure.
you find it, like, be friends.
Yeah. I would totally tap in on that, and
Oh, yeah.
enjoy that time if you have a feeling about it, like people, there's been places I've been like, it feels weird when I go in there, and I'm not a bump in the night guy, but sometimes I get the vibe and I'll be like, okay, this is a little off. And this place is absolutely active. Absolutely. I mean, and that's because it's been artificially induced with all the ritual and summoning that we've done in here. So, I'm doing ritual the other night on a client that was really fucking intense. And the person I'm working with, actually my friend Scarlett was my partner on the working. We're like, wow, shit's really active tonight. Things are dropping out here, scooting across the floor, but I don't even pay any attention to it. When I'm in here alone, it's the only place it's the one place I have no weirdness about, no matter how big it is, because I know this is Akate's house.
Yeah, I've had shit get weird while I was there before, and I'm just like, whatever, it's fine. Like,
yeah, I mean, you're in an occult shop. You're going to get that. Mm-hmm. Look like we got a question. Somebody, yeah. Gray Ghost. What is it?
Grey Ghost asks, what are some steps you can recommend to get rid of negative energies and bring about something productive and positive in our personal life?
I need to see that one more time. I didn't quite catch that. I'm sorry, and I don't want to make you have to read it again. Let me just look at that chat. What are some steps you can recommend to get rid of negative energies and bring about something productive and positive in your life? Okay, I'll go with that, and then Renee will give you her answer because it will undoubtedly be a different one because we work differently. Mm-hmm. I would. It'll in the end will be the same though because we're both doing our own type of versions. When people come in and they have negative energies in their home, what's the first thing I tell them to do? If it's bothering you specifically, this is where the egg comes out, and I usually put it under the bed on a bed of salt in a bowl. Put it under the bed and let the egg take the energy, especially if it's affecting your sleeping habit. If it's not doing that and it's just all around the house, the first thing I tell people to do is any black and any white stone will do. And you can buy them in an occult shop or you can buy them at a garden store. It doesn't matter. Get 2 of those stones, put them together, throw them underneath furniture in a corner somewhere and never see them again. And do that in every room in your house and it'll start to set up a barrier. create a basic protection jar, not a war jar, not a broken glass and metal jar, just a basic, nice jar that will set up a good barrier around your home. I would utilize any type of grapeseed oil and some astrological oils pertaining to the people in the home that you're trying to protect. I would mix in both lunar and solar herbs into that mix. And I would also put in black and white stones again in there, and any astrological based stones that correlate to the people in the home. Jar it up, get, for however many people there are, get one candle for each of those people. And you do that by knowing their ruling planet. So what I would do if it was me and Grace and Renee living in a home, I would get an orange candle for me, a yellow candle for Grace, and your birthday is
I'm a
when?
Scorpio, November 3rd.
Scorpio. I would get a red candle, and I would take those 3 candles, and besides those 3, I would get a black candle and a white candle. The black candle I would start first. I would light that, and I would melt it around the edge of the jar, and then on the jar of the stuff that I made, the witch's jar, let it melt all over it. Make the black, that black candle pushes out the negative energy. Then I'd take everybody's individual candles and burn them on there. After those are done, I would use the white candle and bring in the positive with that. And then I would put that in a windowsill and let it be. And that sets a barrier up around the entire house.
Yeah, I mean, that's not actually that different from, something that I would do. I always recommend a house cleansing if you're trying to push out energy. And for that, like I'm with you, Sal. I don't use sage. I use usually like cedar. I use cedar usually.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I go counterclockwise from the front door, counterclockwise around the house, and I say, I banish negativity. I banish, whatever unwanted energies that I don't want in this house anymore, in my space. Try to open windows whenever I'm doing a house cleansing, or if I'm moving around energy in the house, I try to open windows. And then I will take an incense or even cedar again, or Palo Santo, and I will do the same thing over again, but go clockwise, because I want to pull in. Counterclockwise is like sort of reversing, and clockwise is bringing in. And I'll say, I'm bringing in prosperity, I'm bringing in love, I'm bringing in luck, I'm bringing in joy, whatever those things I'm trying to bring in are. I break it down usually room by room, and I'll use a specific type of incense blend depending on the room I'm working with. But also you could do, you could do you could do a release on a full moon. Write down a list of all the things that you want to let go of. And then on the new moon, set intentions for all the things that you want to bring in. And that's another way you can do it. Because I do like working with lunar cycles. I think it's the closest luminary to Earth. So I think it's a very instant beacon for me. But I don't necessarily always feel like I have to go new moon versus full moon. I like to track the aspects that the moon is making, because the moon is super active all the time, bouncing off of different planets. So that's, again, where astrology comes into things.
Yeah. And to bring back, and you said the next part of that question was what can you do also? I would put up little charms around the house, or around the store, let's say here. I have actually a piece of a sprig of devil's shoestring that is pinned up on the door, and that has multiple planets that it works with. I believe it's Jupiter, Mercury, and Venus, and I'll use that there, and that brings in that. So you'll find sprigs of certain herbs that you might want to place up there. And I think that would be a really good way of bringing stuff in. Also, this is where your horseshoes come in. And if you're putting up a horseshoe, there's different customs called different ways of working it. But, the way I was taught is that you take your horseshoe and you make the horseshoe go up, because you don't want your luck to run out. So you want it to be going up, not down. So, have that pinned outside your door before you come into the house. That's another really good thing that you can do for sure.
Yeah, I always put crosses above my doors too, because it's supposed to be you're keeping out, like the folklore is you keep out vampires, but I look at it as like psychic vampires. So I do crosses above my door, and then I also do brick dust across my.
I love brick dust. I know we're really running late, but actually this is just turning out to be so good. People are really invoked right now, and I love that. And somebody's asking a question that I'm dying to touch base on. So can I hit this?
Yeah, go for it.
All right. So Ryan Jones, what are your thoughts on familiars? The term gets thrown around about people's pets. Do you think they play a role in people's practices? Ryan, this is the question of the night. I love this question. Thank you for asking it. And I'm exactly truthfully with you on this. And I do not believe anyone's pet is their familiar. I like that they have pets and they can have a connection to their pet, and their pet can be hanging out with them in the magic circle, and they really can add to it. They're magical beings themselves, but are they a familiar? 150% not, because anything statistically or not statistically, historically, a familiar is not that animal. A familiar takes the form of the animal, and it is not always a house pet. It's more often some type of rodent. And yes, a cat can be that way, but the cat doesn't stay. It doesn't live forever with you as your pet. It's something that inhabits the cat's body, and usually, historically, the animal died, and then the familiar moves out. The familiar can go on and take on a form that is not a pet. It can be a superfluous nipple. It can be extra webbing on your finger. It can be anything that can be animated by a spirit or a djinn or a daemon or demon or a succubi or an incubi or any other magical spirit or undine that is inhabiting the house of this figure that moves around. So 100%, I don't care who you are, you don't have a familiar. You can call it that, and it's a sweet, cute little name, but it's not. A familiar is not a human. It's not an animal that we know. It's not.
I've read different things though, that like a familiar could just be could constitute as an animal that like energetically enhances your work, or an animal that protects your energy, or an animal like I felt like I believe in familiars, and I think that like whenever
I do too, but they're definitely not animals.
See, but I think of it in this, but I think of them as, as that way, because first of all, I had a rat come to me, which you mentioned rodents. I had a rat come to me in a really weird way where I wanted a pet rat, and I would started looking up on on the Humane Society. Like I was trying to find one I could adopt, and I couldn't find any rats. But the same day that I started looking for rats on the Humane Society and on adoption websites, and I couldn't find any, that same day, someone posted on Facebook like, hey, someone got a feeder rat for their snake and they didn't have the heart to give it to the snake. So does anybody want a pet rat?
Bring it to the crooked path.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I know. But that to me, it felt very magical. And
that is magical, but that definitely isn't familiar.
See,
that's a magical being. You're using a word, you're adapting a word to what it is. And I'm not trying to cause an argument with you, but that's definitely not a familiar.
See, but I have read definitions of what a familiar is that constitutes a familiar to be any sort of animal that helps you with your magical work. And even when I'm doing magic now, when I'm doing a spell, Voodoo wants to be right next to me. She gets active. She's crying because she wants me to hold her.
Of course she does. She wants attention.
No, but she's not like that normally. She acts different when I'm doing a spell. She acts differently. And I think that any animal that contributes to your magical working and you feel is adding something to your ritual, to me, that I think is a familiar. Yes.
I absolutely, disagree with her.
There's also folklore that says that a witch's familiar was the form that a witch took when she transformed from like a human into an animal. So like there are a lot of opposing folklores that you can find.
But where does familiar come from? What does that mean? Familial.
Well, for me, it's
familial.
An animal that helps you with your magic.
No. Literally, I'm talking about the word familiar. What is its base? Its root. Familial. That which is a familiar is something that which you can identify with in your psyche to make things happen. Okay. And a witch's familiar was something that was manifested. More than likely, it was something that would have been in, to most people, negative. Again, I'm not trying to, we could go back and forth all night, and that's why this is such a fun show. But I'm all about like literal terminologies of what things are. And I think that also an animal that wants to come in your circle is completely a gift, and it's a magical gift. But I don't see that as a familiar from the technical term, if there would be one. I think that is a magical being. Animals are inherently magical beings. They have senses that we don't understand. And when you have them in a magical environment, they're on. They're like an antenna for it. But that being said, that's still not familiar. That's another magical being that's in the work.
I disagree.
That being would die if you tried to take it out. A familiar would just transfer over into another jump, into another space. That's how that's how I'm seeing familiar.
Yeah, and I think that what matters at the end of the day is your own personal perspective. Yeah. You know, I think I've had familiars. You don't. It's fine. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, but people like words that make them feel that it connects them to this. And I think that people should be really connected to those animals because they're amazing. I mean, I know so many people, like I feel almost at a loss that we don't have a cat in the shop.
Let's get a cat for the shop.
I want one, but Poby doesn't want a cat in the shop. But the thing is, every witch shop should have a cat because it's a magical being. Mm-hmm. It definitely is. But I definitely, going to Eye of the Cat back in the old days when I was being baptized, Pyewacket was there. Anybody that knew old Eye of the Cat knew Pyewacket. She wasn't a familiar. She was an old cat that lived there that, that had magic about her in herself. She was her own magical energy and being. But I definitely didn't see her as something that housed, that was housed in the form of an animal. But that's where I am with that. We have that people are just really loving us tonight.
I know.
Frank's cat's name is named that. Greg wouldn't want a cat either. Greg wouldn't want a cat either. What does that mean? Oh. What am to be those practices? Thomas Rodriguez asks, would you construe a demon as a familiar? A daemon. I love that you spelled that way. Daemon. Would I construe? I think that a daemon definitely has the ability to become a familiar. But I think that a daemon could go into a living animal and assume it's housing and then step out, then the animal wouldn't have that in it anymore. I think that's completely plausible for sure. I think. God damn, this is just crazy. Last question. So Sal is saying a familiar spirit that can jump from one life form to another. I would say, as far as familiars go, I think that's how I see it. I see a familiar as a spirit that uses most often a common animal to be housed within it, so it can be in earthly form and manipulate
Like a
or,
possession?
huh?
Like a
Almost like a
possession?
possession. Well, it's almost like the possession of an animal. It steps into it, it houses it, uses it as a housing, and to work around. You got to remember that daemons and demons cannot be normally outside of a conjured space because they
Right.
don't have, they can't manifest. So when they manifest into a familiar, they can move around and get things done. But more times than not, usually the familiar would end up, the animal that housed it would end up dead, or the being would move out of it and on, and then the animal would just be that special animal that they were.
Yeah.
That's how I see it. But you guys, this has been an amazing show. This is what every week should be like. I don't want dead shows.
I
just don't
was
want to be
so
part of them.
honestly, like everyone who's tuning in live and sending in their questions, like before we went on, I told Sal, I was like, no one's going to be participating. It's the day before Christmas Eve. Like, let's expect things to be low key. Let's cut it at an hour. Let's just get it done. And you guys totally showed up. So
And you're like, it's Christmas Eve, I'm gonna cut my wrist. Give me something to do, you know? So yeah, we're here.
yeah,
We're here
people
with
are
you.
like, oh my God, I need this. Yeah, okay. So I was
Witchcraft. This is awesome. A great show. A great co-host. Great conversations. If I'm not, I'll tell you this right now. If I'm not invoking thought, or if I'm just sitting here wasting airtime on YouTube, at any point when it gets to that, I'm out of here. I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm here for you guys to bounce your questions off and to invoke thought in you. That doesn't mean you have to answer, believe in what I think. You might think, so you're full of shit. I have a familiar with me taking a dump in the pot right now. That's fine. That's your belief. But I want this. I want you to talk. I want you to talk to us. We're here for you. With that, have a wonderful Christmas Eve. By the way, I know we are over, but I'm going to touch on one last thing. Christmas Eve. Can it be Christmas Eve and you're a witch? Fuck yes, it can. What does it mean to you? Christmas has taken on a whole new perspective over the last hundreds or so years. We can all celebrate Christmas and don't have to be worshiping the Christ. Okay. This is a time of loved ones and chosen family and life partners. And do you need to have a tree in your house? No. If you want a tree and you're a witch, can you have one? Yes. You can do whatever the fuck you want.
That's why
Christmas
you're a witch.
is a time for us to love one another, for be thankful of the beautiful people that we have in our lives, and that we're sucking air on this messed up globe that we are going to make better in 2021.
Yes.
From my side of the fence and from the crooked path, I love you all. Have an amazing year. Thank you for being in my life. Thank you for coming to the store and supporting my wife and my endeavor. And thank you for asking questions. And thank you to Renee for being an amazing reader and astrologer and amazing co-host. And thank you to the Crooked Path. And thank you to the Shadow Crew. The Shadow Crew, John. Thank you to Jackie. Thank you to Grace for keeping us on time. Thank you all. Have a blessed, beautiful Christmas. Yuletide greetings to you. Blessings to your family and your loved ones. Be safe. And I will see you next week. Renee, I'll let you have the mic.
Honestly, I think you just put it so well. I concur with all things. You can find us online, betwixtheshadows.com, thecrookedpathshop.com, rainbowglitterstar.com, on Instagram, at Betwixt the Shadows, at the Crooked Path _LA, at Rainbow Glitter Star. We love you, and
we love you. We are out of here.
Bye.